This is the Buttercup wing. Got one side covered right now. We need to fold into this. What I'm about to show you is all the internal workings of this wing and where all the connections and stuff go. So it should be self-explanatory when you look through the plans on this. I've got these wing turners, which I recommend. It makes for easy access to the wing. Any position you need to for covering or painting. A little tighten over here. I want to start with each bay and explain what I've done in each bay. This is the gull wing section of this airplane. This is covered with 16th inch mahogany or birch. I kind of like the birch better, it's a little easier to bend. And this has just a pine leading edge shaped to this airfoil shape. You put this on after this. Look inside here. Here's the front wing fitting. Right here. It's held on with 1/4 inch bolts. The last bolt is incorporates the tab for the flying wires. That's true about the rear wing fitting, which is down here, same tab. Now, I made that tab experimenting with 1/8 inch aluminum, but you could use 063 4130, about 3/4 inches wide. That seems to work fine. The rear wing fitting and the front wing fitting are identical with the exception of 1/4 inch bolts versus 3/16 bolts. And the main bolt, it's held on over here, is a 3/8 bolt in the front, a 5/16 bolt in the back. This is the first full bay, and as you notice, this is cut out. All the rest of the ribs, all the way down with the exception of the last rib, has the nose cut off it to incorporate the leading edge flap system. What you're seeing in here is the pitot tube, this is the left wing of course, and a wire for the wing lights. This is 1/8 inch aircraft cable. I have 2 separate bays stopped by the compression strut in the middle. Now, unlike the plans, I at one point was trying to use this mahogany gusset on both sides for a compression rib, and later on, after more research, I decided I didn't need that. So in your wing, you'll just stick with these ribs between the last 2 ribs, which are full gusset on both sides, as well as the very first rib, which is the short rib. Now, inside, you can get a closer shot of this inside here. This is the wing leading edge attach hinge, which I have held on by 2 3/16 bolts. These are the 3/16 bolt heads with a fender washer, which I put 16th inch plywood on both sides. I didn't make this cutout yet. I just put the fabric over it, but that cutout hole right there is where the flap tube, push tube goes through there. I'll show you that one. This is a typical push rod. It's 1/2 inch 035 with a threaded insert welded on, and the Whitman type, I don't know if you can get this or not, the Whitman type of hinge, what he did is always just bent a piece of 4130 058, drill a hole in the end of it, and that incorporates this. This is the mechanism that pushes the leading edge on. I have this off now for the other wing, but this push rod goes right through there, and this hinge connects to that bottom of that hinge. So when you push it forward, this is where you get the leading edge working. Okay. This is, I have 2 washers under this particular one, because when I put the leading edge on here, the leading edge, to make it shape here exactly perfect, you can adjust this up or down, and I held it on with just drywall screws until I got it. And then I replaced the drywall screw with a 3/16 bolt but I found it necessary to put 2 washers under this particular one, and that moved it in position absolutely perfect. You may end up with a thin washer or maybe a piece of aluminum or something to shim either top or bottom, or both, so that these come out right. I also, once I got the leading edge on right, I added an 1/8 inch piece of plywood to fill the gap. It's easier to fill the gap with putting plywood on here than trying to incorporate that onto the leading edge, the aluminum. Again, there's 2 of these. There's one at this end, and I'll show you the one at this end. There's only 2 hinges that hold that leading edge on. When I crisscross with the 1/8 inch cable through here, I always tie off a little bit so you don't get any vibration. I've got these taut. I adjust that and make sure that you're checking from corner to corner so you don't twist the wing out when you tighten the turnbuckles. That brings us to the center section over here. Can you get this okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is aluminum tube that I use. I like this better than steel. It's lighter and it does the job just fine. I've got these small pieces of tubing welded to the inside front attach fitting and rear attach fitting. And you can see where I have these. And it's necessary to put them in this position to make clearance for this push rod that goes under here. You don't want it hitting these wires. The push rod starts here, but it ends up going outside the wing, right underneath the rear spar. Now, when I put this together, it all slides together. I glue the inside of it, squeeze it in, put it in, pull it back out, put the bolts top and bottom, center this, and I let the glue dry. After that, I drill a 1/4 inch hole through this end, and there's my 063 tabs that I have red oxide primer on. This is a good place to put your turnbuckles, your 4 turnbuckles for tightening your drag and anti-drag wires. I almost have the reverse of this now by completing this other bay over here. Here is the outer edge, or the outboard hinge mechanism, which is the reverse of that hinge mechanism off there. Again, 1/16 inch plywood on both sides. A little bit different space in here because that's the intersection between the flap and the aileron. So you have to space it accordingly to make everything fit. Yours may vary a little bit, depending on if you make the flap a little longer, a little shorter, whatever. So there's no set rule. It's just where the division of the flap and aileron come, which is on the rear spar. Now at this end, which I also can show you what I had to do, I've got bolts that hold on this wingtip out on the very end bay, but it was too hard to get the micropress tool in here to put these micropresses on. So what I did is I just cut a little slot in the rib, which is a hollow spot. It'd be the same as this right here. And I slid a 4-inch piece of 3/4 058 flat stock. I buy that in strips. And that works as a real nice chain, but it's way back here is where I held this on at. Do you want to come over here and get this tip? These are the wing tips, the wooden wing tip that he put on Buttercup the last couple of years that the Buttercup was in service. And it greatly increased the lift and the takeoff run, and it also increased the airspeed at 8,000 to 9,000 feet. These are made out of 032 flat stock on this side and 063 on this side, only because this piece of tubing here has to be welded to something more substantial than 032. But I wanted to do that to make it a bit lighter. All I did is just set a piece of flat stock against there, trace it out, bend it over on a small bender, bend it over, stuck this side on, and did the reverse on this side with the 063. I try to incorporate as many things as I can so I don't have to double up on stuff, and that's why I wanted to use that same bolt that not only held this wingtip on, these cups on, which are also epoxied on, but it incorporated these tabs I talked about that holds the 1/8 inch blind wires on. These ribs are put on after you've made this triangle, and this is what they refer to as piper channel. That's 3/8 by 3/8 by, I believe that's 025 or 035 in thickness. I fluted it here to make this curvature, but these are also put on after the front, the trailing edge and leading edge are put on. This happens to be a piece of 5/8 058, or excuse me, 035. I have a tab right here that I've bolted through the piece of block. Now you gotta remember the last two ribs, that one incorporates the leading edge that needs to be bolted on or screwed on, and this has to be screwed on, so you want to make a block in here, and don't miss that in the plans, otherwise you'll have a hollow rib to bolt this to. What I've done on the very end here, as you can see with my wing turner, and it works real well, I took a large washer, because the end of this tube was open, and I welded a nut on the inside of it, spun it around, the nut is inside that tube now, and then I edge welded the washer on. That later will incorporate, not only just for this wing turner, but my wing light attachment, and I'll hold it on with a 3/8, very short 3/8 bolt. This area right through here, this dimensions, which I believe is, I'll measure this for you now, it's about 13, 14 inches. This area on the top of the wing, all the way across, you could lay a straight edge all the way across these ribs like this, right up to this point. And this rib and this rib, and this plane right here, should be the same. But it's impossible to make these do anything but just follow the curvature of the wing, because otherwise you'd have an elliptical shape here. So just pull it down. Once you've got this incorporated, you start off from point A to point B, and where it comes is where it comes. It's important, if you're going to make this little bend here, which I did to kind of clear this, that you lay this bend down the same on both wingtips, because you can get a turn in here so that one wingtip will have more angle of attack than the other. So make sure that whatever you decide to do on this one, you do the same on your other wing. These noses on these metal cups haven't got to be that long. I did it afterwards, but if I was to do it again, I would see where this tube came, and that cut off the difference. Otherwise, there's a possibility that's very close to the fabric. If you see me touching it here, you'll see that that's very close. You may want to, I just drew a center line and came down at an angle, but you may want to move that up a little bit, just a ½ inch off center, and you wouldn't have that problem. And the same with back here, you may want to move that a little bit, because this bottom is very close to the fabric. This is stainless steel, which brazes. The only way to put that on, you don't want to weld that on the piper channel, this brazes. It's kind of tough. You'll have to do some practicing to get that right. And this has also got a tab that's brazed on here, and then bolted through the aileron spar. Try to move up and show you. These little holes you'll see in here are the fittings, or the holes for the hinge fittings of the flap and the aileron. And those are explained in the plans, how to make those. And that's all it does. It doesn't need any more than that. That'll hold it on. As far as the construction of the ribs, once they're made and you've slid them on in the proper order and the proper dimensions, I've put these corner blocks in. That's something that Whitman did in all his wings, and I think he really did it because the glues back then weren't as good and gap filling as the glues and epoxies of today. Because I use the Glution system or T88. I like both of those. Anything that'll fill those in, I put them on with a few staples, and that makes a real sturdy rib. So, unlike the tailwind, Buttercup has two wing fittings, because there's two. The tailwind is an all plywood wing, and the Buttercup has a fabric wing. So, of course, you got to get a rear strut. So, you would incorporate both of these. It's important to know that you've got two fittings on this, two lift struts. So, that's pretty much all I have to tell you about the wing. And if there are any more questions about that, please give me a follow loose there. Thanks a lot.